Last summer, I went to one of my best friend's weddings. And over dinner, it was time for the speeches. And as a communication coach, this is my favorite part. What's more, I knew that the father of the bride had a great speech. Why? Because I had helped him on the draft. So I knew this was a real tearjerker. It was the dad's moment. He stands up, he pulls out his phone, which has his notes on it. He's got the microphone, but down here, and he's reading his entire speech in a really low volume, and no one can hear. And I can tell people looking around and they're leaning in, trying to understand. But then a few minutes in, people lost focus, started having side conversations. I felt so bad for him. And what could have been this beautiful moment was really a missed opportunity. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not giving a wedding speech anytime soon, but we all have important information we need to convey, whether it's for work, for school, even at home. I see this a lot as a communication coach, that people will spend all this time crafting their content, refining their content, but then they forget about the other part, which is delivering that content with confidence. So whether you're preparing a wedding speech or work presentation, here are 3 tips to help you deliver that content with more confidence and connection. Tip number 1, say your speech aloud and make language edits. As you're talking aloud, listen to yourself and ask yourself, is this how I normally talk on a day-to-day basis? Is this language I would use? And if you say to yourself, probably not, it's too formal, then change it. This is a way to not only be authentic to yourself, but also to connect with your audience. And this is so important because we often write our notes, our script, in very formal, written, serious language, which isn't how we actually talk. For example, if I were giving a wedding speech, I would not say the synergy between these 2 individuals was founded in their common enjoyment of snorkeling. What does that even mean? I would never talk that way. Instead, I would say, Michael and Christy first fell in love on a snorkeling trip in Hawaii. And we don't often know that what we've written is formal until we've said it aloud. So again, first tip is to say your content aloud, change the language to make it conversational, even for work presentations. Tip number 2, slow down and add some feeling. We don't want to race through our content. We also don't want to read our content, because guess what? If we're not feeling it, our audience isn't feeling it. And so as you're reading your content aloud, think about, how do I feel about this? Is this exciting? Am I happy? Is this good news? Is this serious news? Is there a sense of urgency? And one thing that can really help you express that emotion is to add some pauses and some emphasis. For example, let's say I was giving a wedding speech to my friend Christy. Instead of saying in a monotone voice, I'll never forget when Christy told me, Anne, I think I've met my future husband. If I add some pauses and feeling, emphasis, it would sound more like, I'll never forget when Christy told me, Anne, I think I've met my future husband. This is so important because when we get nervous for a speech, we tend to get a really flat presenter voice. We forget about bringing in that emotional piece. So we want to be conversational, and we also want to express some emotion. This is really going to help our audience connect with our message. Finally, tip number 3, this is going to help you with your eye contact. Think one person, one idea. With eye contact, we tend to do some funny things. I told you the father of the bride, he just looked at his notes, didn't make eye contact at all. Another extreme might be staring at one person the whole time. But typically what most people do is they'll just scan the room very quickly. But this isn't really connecting with your audience. Instead, look at one person for one sentence, for one thought, then switch it up and look at someone else. And in this way, you're really connecting. It's like you're having mini conversations instead of giving a speech. And it's going to help you feel grounded and also help you look more confident. By the way, this is something you can practice ahead of time. I put my kids' stuffies around my office and I practice the eye contact. So I'm going to look at giraffe for my opening story. Okay, now I'm on to my overview of my presentation and I'm going to look at Tiggy. Now on my first point, I'm looking at Grogu. And Frenchie, I'm going to turn to you when I ask for any questions. That way I've already practiced it. I've practiced connecting with certain people. And then when I go in person for my real presentation, I know I've got this. By the way, keep in mind that this is for in-person events. For virtual presentations, you've got to focus on looking at that camera. That camera is the most important person in your audience. So there you have it. 3 tips to help you deliver that content in a confident way. Tip number 1, say the content aloud. Make sure the language is conversational. Tip number 2, slow down, add some feeling. And finally, think one person, one idea for the eye contact. We hope this helps. We are here to help you. If you want to practice a wedding speech or some important event, we can help you work on that content and your delivery. For more information, reach out to info@lhctraining.com.